You're always dragging people past the word silent. It's like telling people, hey, we're all going out to a bar, but it's in a library. I met somebody once at a party and she said, what do you do for a living? And I say, oh, I accompany silent movies on piano. And she said, no, really, what do you do for a living? And I said, no, that's what I do. A lot of people who've gotten into silent film accompaniment were people who were mainly musicians first. I came into this as a filmmaker. I went to film school, and I found myself in the film history class where the first semester is silent film, listening to people snore and drink coffee. I wanted to help these films not die in front of film students every week. I told him I wanted to try volunteering to play for the film history classes. He loved the idea. It was more about supporting what's on screen and not so much about playing music and my wonderful score. I'll try to come up with a couple of themes ahead of time, and sometimes I have absolutely no idea and I put my hands on the keys and I just go. The rest of the process is that I improvise. I've developed a musical vocabulary the way a jazz musician might work, and you're constantly trying to augment it. So I'm free associating this and constantly watching the screen for clues and sculpting and customizing what I'm playing to fit the vibe in the room. It's hard to imagine that people would look down on movies and working in movies. But at the beginning, it was really in a much more class-based society than we live in now. Movies, up till this point, really had a stigma as being just for the working class and immigrants. After several years, movie theater owners realized, well, this isn't going anywhere. People really like this. How do we get more people in? Filmmakers and studios were making classier films, and to make the presentation classier than an upright piano, that's where you get an orchestra or a theater organ. The theater organ allowed you to present a symphonic sound, but only hire one musician once you installed this monster in your theater.
Sound, the movies talk. Discs, then sound on film, and audiences that had watched silent lips suddenly heard dialogue.
Once sound comes in 1929, 1930, there's no need for the instrument anymore. The films all have their own soundtrack, so what do you do with the theater organ? Because of exactly what they were invented for, silent films, not being around anymore, they would cease to be used. They would be pulled out during World War II. They were used for scrap metal. As theaters closed, they would just be pulled out, and some of them wound up in private residences, barns, warehouses. Once the instruments were removed, what you were left with were pianos, and which had always been here. Piano is fine, but I wanted to expand on that, and that's precisely what the theater organ was invented for.
Thank you very much.
I now use software that have made high-end samples of an actual Wurlitzer theater organ. And I can take it 2 places, assemble it in 15 minutes, plug it into the house sound system, and it sounds pretty much like we've installed a Wurlitzer. Hi. Oh boy, thank you. Yeah. Thank you very much. Thanks for coming to the Alamo Draft House out here in Brooklyn. You're going to get to experience what film going was like when this film was released. I think that as silent films cease to be exhibited, there's a sense of imagination that we would lose, a sense of wonder that we would lose in the cinema. It would have been more logical for the progression to go the other way around, from sound going to silent, because art exists in a taking away. Filmmakers can show you and make you feel anything, and pulling back from that is more of what cinema as art can be.